Cellular respiration is the process whereby large molecules, such as glucose, are broken down in the mitochondria to produce ATP. ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, can be thought of as the currency of energy in the body. The ATP molecule is like a charged battery. It's used to power the cells, and in the process, it is changed into another molecule called ADP, or adenosine diphosphate. To follow the metaphor, ADP is like a discharge battery, but it's a rechargeable battery, and the whole point of cellular respiration is to turn ADP back into ATP by adding a phosphate group to the molecule. There are 3 steps in cellular respiration. The first is called glycolysis. The second is the Krebs cycle, or the citric acid cycle. And the third is the electron transport chain, which is also called oxidative phosphorylation. Each stage is interesting for its own reasons. Glycolysis actually requires the input of 2 ATP molecules as well as a glucose molecule, but it produces 4 ATP molecules for a yield of 2. In anaerobic conditions, glycolysis is the only stage of cellular respiration, and while anaerobic metabolism has its place, it also has some major disadvantages that we'll discuss in another lesson. In any case, glycolysis provides some of the precursors to the next steps where the real ATP harvest occurs. In fact, one of the products of glycolysis is acetyl coenzyme A, which is the beginning substrate of the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle itself only adds modestly to the overall ATP harvest, but it is where the CO2 is produced. The Krebs cycle is important for this reason, and the CO2 produced is an indication of the presence and degree of aerobic metabolism occurring in the body. The Krebs cycle also sets the stage for the electron transport chain, which is where the bulk of the ATP is produced. As the name implies, electrons are passed from molecule to molecule in this series of reactions. Interestingly, the atom that finally accepts the electron at the end of the chain is oxygen. The electrons, the oxygen, and a couple of hydrogen atoms come together to form water, and this is how the excess electrons are transported out of the body. If the oxygen were absent, the electrons would build up in the mitochondria, effectively plugging up the electron transport chain and preventing further production of ATP. If this goes on long enough, this will cause the death of the cell and eventually the death of the organism. So if you've ever stopped to wonder what we need oxygen for, that's it. That's why we need to breathe oxygen. So, normal aerobic cellular respiration is where oxygen is used and CO2 is produced in the service of charging the little batteries that keep us running. If we use more batteries, such as when we run or lift heavy objects, our metabolic rate rises to charge them back up, and in the process we produce more CO2. Conversely, if our metabolic rate falls, our production of CO2 falls.